can send message, but
I think Q&A is disabled, maybe.
No, Q&A, I am getting messages on the Q&A, but the chat is disabled.
Oh, mine is other way around. My Q&A says it's all disabled. Chat is disabled.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it is different for the panelists versus the attendees.
Oh, yeah, it's saying even audio is disabled.
No, audio is disabled until we get to the Q&A. That I understand.
So why don't we just open the room so that people are, the anxiety level is lower. We can wait.
Okay, now, so the chat is enabled now. I see messages. Okay, great. And I think we have all the 14 people who registered on the place. So Sampath, I think we should start. Let me welcome everybody for this session on the Transport for All Challenge. This is the second workshop in the series where once we have now in stage 2, where we have shortlisted a couple of entries. We had 160 submissions, and out of which 70 were shortlisted, and you all know that you are part of that. So welcome to the cohort. And now let me pass it on to Sampath from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to give the welcome address to everybody, and then we'll proceed. Sampath, on to you.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you. Hope I am audible. Yeah, thank you. So I give a warm welcome to all the startups. It's one of the very rare opportunity where the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has taken up this assignment as a challenge in the challenging process. We are into this challenge for past 2 years. There are a lot of thought process get in, and I congratulate the startups who have been selected. So coming to the issues, everybody know that there are plenty of urban issues, out of which the urban transport has a lot of issues, starting from public transport, NMT, then coordination, then a lot of other issues are there in public transport. So we have decided to come out with a solution. Though the ITMS or the ITS is in for a long run, we could not able to arrive a very comprehensive solution for the public transportation issues. So we look forward for the startups. So I understand the startup has very good level of understanding the local context, and they are almost near to the solution. So this is one good opportunity you can take this, and we wish this as to be one of the good platform you can use and come out with good solution. And there are quite a lot of mentors, and there are quite a lot of experts we have just organized. So they will actually align you to the challenge, and they will give you all necessary support to you. So this workshop is also one of such. It's the second workshop on its with a lot of series of workshops. This is the second one, and this workshop mainly talk about bus and stop scheduling and bus maintenance scheduling. So I request everyone to raise the valuable doubts and align yourself to the challenge. So the main purpose of this workshop is to give a clarity, because later once you just on the challenge, you should not feel some fundamentals are not being clear. And this is what that I am looking for. And we should also be in a, we should also convince ourselves, okay, this is what that we have already said, and the solution come out is in the same kind. So with all those things, just align yourself, raise valuable questions, make yourself clear. If at all you have any such doubts, we as a ministry will organize even a few workshops for your clarity. So with these words, I give the workshop to Prashant, and there are a lot of quite good experts in different profiles, and they have a very sound knowledge on it. So over to you, Prashant. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, Sampath, for those words and encouragement. I think we are here basically to understand the domain itself, because we have seen most of the applications, and I think you're all specialists in building solutions. So here we wanted to use this opportunity to kind of open this to the people from the domain, from the public transport space, to detail out their challenges so that you have a better view of that. Now, I would request Mr. Suryakiran, who is the Executive Director of ASRTU, to give an introductory remarks. And Mr. Suryakiran is recently taken over as the Executive Director there. He has 30 years of experience, earlier working with TSRTC in Hyderabad. And he has done pretty fantastic things. And also now that he's at the helm of the Association of State Road Transport Agencies, then he is looking to scale the various activities that are done by individual STUs across the country. So over to you, Suryakiranji.
Thank you, Prashant, and good afternoon to everybody. And congrats to the guys who have been shortlisted for this challenge. Really, it's nice to know that some people are coming up and trying to provide some solutions to STUs. What I would say right now is that to the guys who have been shortlisted, we need to understand how the STU works. We need to understand how IT systems in STUs work. Basically, what's been all along happening is that they've been following certain kind of process, certain kind of procedure. And the companies, whichever the companies approach, those companies come and try to implement some new IT systems there. But ultimately, what's been happening is that whatever the process, whatever the procedure existing there on that day, these IT companies are just trying to replace the same processes and procedures with technology. What's missing in the entire exercise is innovation. The creativity element is missing in most of the ITMS projects I've been seeing from past 10 years. So this is the kind of exercise we should have been doing for a long time. This is the kind of, bringing in startups and trying to create some innovation, trying to come up with new solutions for the existing problems, new solutions for the existing procedures. These are the things which you should keep in mind when you're attempting to do something. Come up with something which is useful, come up with something which is even improving the existing practices, existing procedures, which can make things simpler for STUs to perform. That would be very encouraging to all of us also. We've been in this industry for very long. We are looking for some real change to happen. And I really look forward for such kind of exercise where things are really going to come up with the solutions which were not there earlier. These are the solutions which could make the working processes easy, the procedures easy, and also bringing in different technologies to attempt difficult problems as we are facing as of today, especially in this group which attempts to go in for scheduling. This is one area that's been very tough to crack. To my knowledge, none of the STUs have really implemented any IT solution for scheduling, though people claim that they did it, but I'm sure none of them have done it so far. So this is a real challenging task you have ahead of you. There are lots and lots of conditional adjustments to be made. That's what makes it difficult for other companies to come up with it. Now, what I would advise you is that just attempt smaller issues and problems which are scalable. Once you attempt and give a solution, that should be scaled up to n number of buses. So if you come up with one or two routes of scheduling, that should be easily scalable to hundreds of schedules. If that kind of solution, if you could provide, I'm sure that we will pick it up. From ASRTU also, I'll promise you that once a solution is useful, we'll aggressively promote you all. To every STU, we'll ensure that they look at your product, they look at your utility of your product, and see that they'll also try to make use of this product. So that part of it, I'm giving you assurance that we are there behind you all, but you need to come up with the best of the solutions possible. Please do it. And also in the second part of it, I believe it's a maintenance part of scheduling. That thing is maintenance part of scheduling is little more easier to understand. But then you need to come up with very, very creative ideas to make life simple for STUs. We are a bit outdated. I would always claim this, that we are a bit outdated in front of all of you all the STUs. Technologically, we are really outdated. So if we contact any of STUs, they'll come up with the processes, procedures which are existing there, and they'll say, just replace it with technology. And we don't want that. We want you to be creative give us solutions which make a difference. That's what I would advise you. And I would also assure you that I'll support, as an Executive Director of ASRTU, we'll always be there to support you all. We are just eagerly waiting for solutions to happen. We're eagerly waiting for your solutions to happen. If you provide one solution which can help a city and which is scalable, we can use it across the country. So I really hope that you guys will come up with, do some wonders, and really wish you all the best. Hope to see the solution soon. Thank you.
Perfect. I think you have really set the context for the whole market view of what is ahead. So there is a whole lot of weight that has happened in the past 1-2 decades. The challenges of the STUs have really increased, but we have not found solutions that would make life easier. So I think that is clearly apparent from Mr. Suryakiran's words. So with that, before I go ahead and introduce the rest of the speakers for the session and everything, but I'll first hand over this to Smriti from ITDP so that she can give a kind of an approach to the next couple of months, what you can expect as part of this challenge, and where all we are, that kind of stuff, all the housekeeping stuff. So Smriti, can you go ahead and then tell what is expected, what we are planning to do in the next couple of months, what are the deadlines for them, and that kind of stuff?
Sure. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes,
Yes.
Smriti.
Okay. So good afternoon to one and all present over here. So I'm Smriti from ITDP India, and I once again like to congratulate all the startups who have been shortlisted for the stage 2 of the challenge. So I'll be giving a very quick overview of the Transport4All Digital Innovation Challenge itself. So this challenge basically aims to bring together cities, citizens, and also startups to basically develop digital solutions that improve the public transport in cities. And these developed solutions are aiming to make the public transport safe, affordable, and convenient also for all. So basically, this challenge is divided into 3 stages. Is my slide moving?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So basically, these challenges are divided into 3 stages. The first stage is on the problem identification stage, and we have successfully completed this stage. And right now we are in the second stage of solution generation. So the first stage on problem identification is where, through nationwide public transport surveys, we had identified the problems that the cities have been facing in public transport. And then in the second stage, which is right now, the startups will be developing solutions to basically address these problem statements that have been identified by the cities. And in the third stage, the winning startups will be piloting the solutions that have been tested. So these are the broad 3 stages itself of the challenge. And then for the first stage, we had 7 distinguished steps, very important steps, with which we successfully completed the stage 1 of the challenge itself. The first one focuses on forming the Transport4All task force, where we formed this whole working committee with the government agencies, NGOs, and all the relevant public transport stakeholders itself, and almost 100 Transport4All task force committees were formed across cities. And the second and the third step focused on citizen survey, bus staff survey, where we interviewed the bus drivers and the conductors, and the third is on the IPT drivers survey. So on the citizen survey, we were able to capture almost around 2 lakh citizen voices, and on the bus staff survey, where we interviewed bus drivers, we were able to capture around 15,000 responses from bus drivers and conductors collectively, and also 22,000 responses from the IPT drivers as well. Apart from these quantitative insights that we got from the surveys, we also did some qualitative analysis, for which we conducted consultations with the bus drivers and conductors, and also with the IPT drivers itself, to get some qualitative insights on how they the issues of the operators itself. And then based on all these data, we did a massive survey analysis to identify the problem areas itself. And then finally, almost all the cities who have completed the survey submitted almost across 165 plus problem statements for stage 1 submission. And then the challenge team, T4A challenge team, finally curated 8 problem statements from all these 165 problem statements, which had been submitted by the cities who have completed all these surveys. So these were the broad process of the stage 1. And 45 champion cities had successfully completed the stage 1 of the challenge. And these are the final 8 curated problem statements that the Transport4All challenge team had curated. So yesterday we had a workshop on the first 2 problem statements on tool for rationalizing transit routes and also on digitization. And today we are having this workshop to basically address the problem statement on the 3rd problem statement of scheduling public transport staff, and also the 7th one on monitoring of transit fleet health, and also the scheduling and maintaining schedules. So, and also 9 startups have been shortlisted for these 3rd and the 7th problem statement on bus and staff scheduling and also on maintenance scheduling. So congratulations to all these startups again for these 2 problem statements. And to give you an overview of what the stage 2 will consist of. So there are again 4 major deadlines which are coming up in stage 2 of the challenge. So the first deadline will be on 20th April, where a guidance document for solution will be submitted to all startups. And then the second deadline is on the 31st July, by end of 31st July, where startups will develop the solutions with the cities. And also the states will be adopting the startup procurement policy. And then by the mid of August, we are expecting the startups to present the solution beta testing results and the implementation plan to basically a jury of experts. And then by the end of August, there will be this announcement of 16 final winning startups or solutions at a very big offline workshop. So these are the broad 4 deadlines that we are looking forward in the stage 2 of the challenge. And then the next is on the reward distribution. So for these 16 winning startups, the reward will be distributed in 4 sets. So the first set of reinvestment will be happening after the stage 2 winners announcement, which is by the end of August, and which will be a percentage of 40. And then the second set of reinvestment will be after finalizing the pilot solution procurement with the city, which is by the mid of September, and which will also be a percentage of 40. And then the third set of reinvest will be then while submitting the pilot project results, which is by the mid of November. And then the final set of reinvestment, which is 10%, will be after the announcement of the stage 3 winners. So these are the 4 set of reinvestment stages in which the reinvestment will be distributed to the startups itself. And then similar to the stage 2, in stage 3 also we have like 4 major deadlines, which is by the first is by the end of September, where the cities are expected to procure the solutions from the startups itself. And then by the mid of November, which is the cities and the startups are expected to pilot the solutions. And then by 30th November, the startups will be presenting the pilot solution to the jury of expert. And then by 15th December, the final successful announcement of the startups and solutions will be showcased by MOHUA on 6 platforms, which basically enables cities to procure their services as well. So the broad timelines, which I just recalled, are showcased right now. Is my screen visible? I'm changing the slide.
We are still seeing stage 3 screen.
Okay. I think the timelines are covered overall. So this is a great opportunity for startups to utilize this platform to show your excellence and to show your innovative skills. And I hope all the startups will make use of this great opportunity as well. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Smriti, for that quick briefing on the timelines. So essentially what I see is that you all have till end of August to showcase your proof of concept and with sample data from various cities and all that. So that's the timeline that you're working against. So now I see all the speakers. Do we have Mr. Prashant? Yes, I see it. So let me introduce all the speakers to you for today. So we have with us Mr. Alok Jain. Alok is a very inspirational figure for me personally. He is the CEO of Transconsult, a managing consulting firm specializing in public transport advisory and associated applications. Alok is an international expert trainer for UITP, which is International Association of Public Transport, and also a fellow of the Civic Exchange in Hong Kong. So Alok is based in Hong Kong, and he has a 30 years of stunning career in helping make public transport better. So welcome to the session, Alok. So then next we have Mr. Prashant Kakade. By qualification, he's a civil engineer having an academic experience, excellence in transportation engineering with 20 years of experience. And he is currently the coordinator for Management Development Center at Central Institute of Road Transport, which is a subsidiary of ASRTU. And he has worked extensively on research and consulting in the public transport space. So that's Mr. Prashant Kakade. Then next we have with us Sayam Gandhi, a young entrepreneur, full-time director at Chartered Speed Limited. It's a passenger mobility company with operations in 10 states and serving about 3 lakh passengers every day. So he's also the founder and CEO of micro mobility company Chartered Bike, but that for some other day. Sayam, I think you're operating about 1,000 buses now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, super. So you see, Sayam is here to talk about his own challenges managing fleet across the country, across geographies, various intracity, intercity, and all that stuff. So he'll be a direct client to you if you provide some innovative solutions. So with that, let me first invite Mr. Prashant Kakade. Sir, with your overall experience and advisory to the various state transport undertakings, I think you are in the best position to talk about the challenges faced by them in terms of the crew scheduling, bus scheduling, and maintenance. So I will. So we have about 15 minutes for you. So if you could introduce our startups to the various challenges that you face, various solutions that you have, what you're looking for, that would be great.
Yeah. Shall I start my session, sir?
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
Do you have, are you trying to present your screen? Okay, great. Are you able to see that on the screen?
Is it visible?
Yes, now we have it on the screen. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Before we go for understanding the bus crew scheduling and other things, we should understand how to define the bus schedule. It refers to the program of operations of a bus for 24 hours on one or more routes. And when we say the crew scheduling, it refers to pair of drivers and conductor. The duty allocated for a day is called as a crew scheduling. Okay, because what happens if I continue to start, then again it should not be a question as what exactly and how do you define it. Next part is what are the factors that affect the bus and the crew schedulings. First is the running time. In that running time, basically the route. Yes, here one more important factor which I would like to highlight is the route. The spelling of route and router, R-O-U-T-E-R and R-O-U-T. When it is spelled by the IT expert, they spell route as route. That is the most blunder one which I have been seeing it. I would request that they should pronounce it correctly. Okay, or else it will add on the miscommunication. Yeah. take it forward, then number of stops, and then the waiting time at each stop, that affects the running time, then followed by distance between the stops, and then the operating conditions, that is the traffic which is going to create a traffic jam, the carriageway width, the turnings, the length of the routes, etc. And then when it comes to the stand time, it is the reporting time for the crew when he's supposed to report, then cushion for the delay occurred in the journey when he starts the journey. Are there any cushion, and how much is the time for that cushion? Rest or the break for the crew, how much it is? What happens? Say 20 kilometers route stretch or 30 kilometers route stretch, and there is a route of 5 or 6 kilometers. For 5 or 6 kilometers, how much should be the rest time? And for a long route, how much should be the rest time? That can't be the same, obviously. So that needs to be fixed up. This needs to be fixed up by the transport authority, public transport authority. When we say crew, then Motor Transport Workers Act holds applicable about the duty hours and then spread over duty and then steering duty. Steering duty means it is just like, for example, the driver, how much time he spends on the driving, that is called as a steering duty. Okay, and spread over means what? When a driver or a conductor comes to the depot, he has to follow some duties, performance or activities like reporting for duty, collecting the ETMs, taking the bus for the day, and for that you require the time. Even after the completion of duty completely, he is supposed to hand over those things and make the information as what are his observations and completely remit the cash, etc. So you need to have a spread over time duty. Okay, and there are some duties in which there is no rest. Okay, which are like which we can call it as a steering duties are only there in that case mostly. That is 6 hours of total stretch without a gap only, and it's a continuous one. This is given in the MTW Act. And then there are rules pertaining to how much should be the minimum rest between the duties. Between two successive duties, at least there should be 9 hours of rest. And again, there are caps on how much should be the weekly duties and monthly, how much it should not cross, etc. In short, for crew duty allocations, there are rules and regulations which are governed. Now, in India, some of the STUs, they are using IT solutions also, like for the duty allocation of crew, for driver and for conductor. The duty allocations are done by the system and then information is sent to them. Like for example, the driver, the type of service he is supposed to operate, then vehicle number, and then reporting time for the duty are given direct information. And in case if a particular driver or a conductor is having some physical issue, fitness issues, then he can log in by using his login ID and password and apply for the leave. You don't have to always show his face to the depot manager or the other senior authorities. He can do it in online also. This thing is done in the crew management systems. This will also help the existing officers to manage the crew efficiently. How many duties can be cancelled or how many extra crew can be brought in, that can be also be planned using these softwares. There are some improving tips also. What happens? Vehicle and crew scheduling. If we use IT solutions, it is going to improve the efficiency. That studies has already proven. In short while, I'll be showing 1 or 2 studies. Then, when we say duty allocation, the basic question comes up as where is the crew change? Means what? Suppose in the morning shift, there is a set of driver and conductor. And in the afternoon shift, there is again a set of other drivers and conductor. Where are those going to change? So for that changeover, there are two methods are there which are widely practiced in India by the urban transport agencies. First method is the depot changes take place at the depot. Means what? After the completion of the last trip of the first half, the bus goes to the depot, hands over the driver hand over the bus to the vehicle examiner, and then the next crew takes over. In the second case, the crew change take place at the bus station. It can be an intermediate or it can be at the last stop. That is also there. Okay, there are two widely practiced methods which are there in India. Next. Conventional practice means without using IT, what they do is they are having traditional practice like in suburban routes, they take a speed of 24 kilometer approximately for the section beyond the urban limits. For within the city routes, they use the speed of approximately 20 kilometers per hour and adjust the total travel time. What is going to happen because of lack of usage of ITS and IT? You may agree with the fact, even everybody might have seen that the early morning and late night, the running time to complete the trip are less because of low traffic and low passengers at the bus stops. On the other hand, during the peak hours, the running time is very high than the normal. Why? Because of the peak hour traffic. In the afternoon, the trips generally adjust to the schedule time. Then the basic question come up as what are the international best practices? In India, what is happening is irrespective of the time and the type of traffic, the time given for the allocation of each trip is fixed. Means suppose, for example, for reaching from A to B, which is of 17 kilometer section, if a particular bus is given fixed travel time, and then he is expected to reach say 1 hour, the travel time for that 1 hour schedule is fixed. That is not flexible. It is unfortunate that in India itself, this is a, I would say in other way, it is a deviation from the central, or I would say that in other countries, rest of the countries in the world, this is not the case. They are having variable scheduling, or I would say the dynamic schedulings are there. And here the losses that are accumulated are very high because of these things only. Because we fix everything, like speed is fixed, the scheduled time taken for each trip is also fixed. And this is the most lacuna which was observed internationally, identified at several platforms, and there is only few STUs who are addressing to these changes. This is a case study of any KSRTC, wherein this was Mysore case study, wherein ITS implementation was done. Like I said, they have done it in a traditional way initially. And then after the implementation of ITS and based upon the international best practices, they have introduced a changes in the scheduling pattern. Like they have introduced morning slack till 8 o'clock in the morning. It can, the first schedule start at say 5 o'clock. First trip starts at 5 o'clock. Then from that till 8 o'clock, they have defined it as morning slack. Then comes up morning peak. They have defined the morning peak as 8 to 11. Then normal, 11 to 1600 is defined as normal. And 1600 to 2000 is defined as evening peak. And then 2000 till last trip, they are defined as evening slack. By doing so, they found that the efficiencies have improved, and they have also done augmentation. They were able to operate with lesser buses and more frequencies. And this is a total outline of their results. Schedule optimization, they have saved about 160.05 lakhs. Reduction in the buses, because of effective implementation, they were able to save 264 lakhs. Preventive maintenance, because if you operate all the buses on the day, then what will happen? Will there be any time to carry out the maintenance then? So that is also going to cost. So in that they have saved it. Then staff reduction because of effective planning. Then overtime they have saved around 124 lakhs. This is a net. This is about the savings that they have fetched. When we say the ITS applications in management of operations, especially bus and crew, what we require, that is based upon the international best practices, World Bank, then other countries best practice, and they want this to be incorporated in India also. For that purpose, this document is actually prepared. In that, the main focus is on automatic vehicle monitoring dispatch, AVM dispatch. They are highlighted 3 important criteria, that is service contract compliance, dynamic rescheduling, and route service monitoring. In this, the route service monitoring is further classified into schedule adherence, then emergency or incident management, and the third one is driving standard compliance. And here I would like to highlight that these are the things which internationally are acceptable. So one need not have to think that what is basic requirement. This you can take it as a basic requirement. Anything above can be accepted. Now, for implementing ITS, you will require the first is the bus stops or station geofencing, or and further down you require codification. Then you want the physical trials for verification of accuracy. You need to fit and see whether they are in line with it or not, or are you getting any deviations, which in fact in several studies, they found that this was the major error. Then ITS and GIS GPS are procured separately. The trial functionally synchronization is essential. In certain cases, what we have observed was the STUs are procuring bus with GIS facility, vehicle tracking systems. You require the other accessories to provide that vehicle tracking systems. Like you require the GIS mappings, etc. If you get the same at one platform, it is excellent, but that is not happening in several STUs. Such solutions are required right now. Means end-to-end solution should be the focus area, I would say, in short. Checking en route, tracking for lat long is the most essential one, because in certain areas, in urban cities also, we found that there are some areas wherein due to the trees, plantations, the lat longs are not available or they are coming with the errors. Further down, if such issues are there, that needs to be highlighted in the tender, or such areas needs to be specified. It is the responsibility of both public transport operator and also the service providers or the solution providers. If there are any issues, such needs to be brought it during the time of pre-bid itself. Because what happens, there could be a defense area. Defense area, they may not allow you to track. So that information can be shared up after that goes out of that areas. Then educating the crew, because what happens finally, those are the ones which are going to use it, else it will lead to sabotage and you need to avoid it. Then AVM shall have to be located. Initially there were the conceptions that AVM should be located out of the reach of the driver as they may sabotage. Initially there were the incidents of that kind, but right now no such things are happening much. But we need to take care that the driver should be easily accessible. The AVM should be accessible within the reach of the driver. Okay. Now, Here, the first thing is on managing the dispatch. In managing the dispatch, the objective is to ensure that the bus performance in line with the bus operational plan scheduled for that day. That is, how many vehicles are expected to depart. Are they departing it or not? Are there any deviations? That needs to be tracked down in managing the dispatch. And further down, in managing the
sir.
dispatch, you should
Sir.
also have.
Prashant, I would just wanted to prompt that we are almost at time. So can you try and conclude?
Yes, another 2 to 3 minutes, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. In managing the dispatch, you need to have complete network on the map, or I would say the dashboard. Then monitoring the route services. Here, the objective behind the route services to identify the route is performing against the plan performance or not. Like here, the bus is shown that expected to arrival at 14:53. Have the bus arrived or not? That should be the criteria actual. Then similarly, if there are any delays, that needs to be highlighted again. Ensuring schedule adherence. This is one of the important criteria. How much deviation can we allow? Here that needs to be spelled out clearly. Next is on driving standard compliance. Whether the drivers are following the route, whether the drivers are skipping the bus stops, or are they suddenly accelerating, deaccelerating, etc., harsh braking. This count have to be done, and we need to pin down the errors, because here the detect and deter is the important enforcement activity. Now coming to the incident management. Here in this case, it is essential for the public transport, individual vehicle problem is there, or it is going to impact the complete public transport service, or the complete area is getting disrupted along with the public transport. That needs to be identified, segregated, and accordingly the solutions are to be offered. Adjusting the schedule dynamically. In some of the issues, they are able to highlight. Here you can see on time, late, overspeed, and then early. Here, the dispatcher should be able to change the destination of any of the bus which is already reached to that destination. If the other bus is delayed by 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that is called as dynamic rescheduling. Then ensuring the contract compliances. And it is contract compliance, as you agreed, that in the contract there are given like this much of kilometers have to be done compulsorily. Those things are to be ensured. Then next is the monitoring of services. What exactly you are supposed to monitor? Early arrival departures, no completion of trip, cancellation of trip, stoppage, VTS analysis report, cancel kilometer. These are some of the parameters which are monitored. Next, I would say the speed limit violations, which are essentials. Stoppage report, then vehicle report, kilometers, how much it has been covered. In case of BRT, you need to segregate it en route and off route. Then skip stop reports. This is a monitoring driving behavior, wherein harsh acceleration is given particular colors, idling, then sharp cornering. If you take a sharp corner, it's going to throw away some passengers. Slight inconvenience is caused, so that's going to happen. This is a trip progress reports which are required. I will just show you a video also. Most of the people, they have the problem that where are those definitions, where are the parameters, KPIs, key performance indicators, how they've been identified. Here I would like to say that CIT is the only agency in India which prepares the terms and terms like kilometers per effective kilometers, dead kilometers, EPK, earning per kilometers, and that definitions are given in the compendium of terms, compendium of transport terminologies. And if we want to know the performance, the KPIs, key performance indicators, how they are identified, that is given in the profile and performance book that is prepared by CIT. Based upon that, only the awards are also given. Yeah, thank you. Any questions, sir? Yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for an overarching presentation that way. We'll take the questions towards the end. There were some
Okay,
questions
no
which
issue.
Alok had been nice enough to answer also already. So I see that you have already walked into some of the detailing of the challenges where though we were actually looking for what is the state of practice in the
Yes.
STUs. But anyway, this is good. So I think this will lend into Alok's presentation or even actually overlap with what, to some extent, what Alok was going to speak. Alok, you there?
Yes, I am very much here.
Yes. So over to you, Alok, for your detailing of the bus and crew scheduling problem from a whole international experience perspective, as well as your experience in India.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, so first of all, I would like to begin by saying congratulations to all of you. You are the shortlisted ones. And I think this innovation landscape in India is such a huge opportunity. And this is something I always talk about, is that India, is a billion people country advantage. China has done it, and I think India can probably replicate the same. We can find homegrown solutions, scale them, apply them, and then really export it out to the world at a reasonable cost. The solutions at the moment are all available. So we talked about scheduling solution from Mr. Surya Kiranji mentioned earlier about scheduling solutions not being available. There are quite a few solutions available in the market. They're probably on the more expensive side when it comes to, I would say, Indian segment from that perspective. So there is a huge, I think, room for a solution that is homegrown or developed in India, which can be applied everywhere else. So that is kind of setting a context. So, and of course, the presentation from Mr. Prashant has covered a lot of introductory aspect. So I'll quickly run through that, and I'll talk about a few other things. One of the things that actually, touched me when he talked about speed there was this using urban speed of 20 kilometers an hour and 25 kilometers an hour as suburban. Now, this is, to me, what I call is the curse of the averages. We always tend to, in transport, people use this word average all the time. And that was because in the past, we used to have this overload of data which we could not process. And most of the transport operators and planners, what we would normally do is we would just look at, take out the averages to make it easier to understand. And we would quote averages all the time. And I call it, this is a curse of the average, is that only thing guaranteed about average number is that you are 50% wrong, at least. Right? So you could be 50% right, but you are 50% wrong. That is also guaranteed in an average. So we today, with all these ITS and data analytics techniques, that what we can do is we can make it a more fine-tuned, fine-grained analysis and position services exactly for time of the day, for day of the week, for hour of the everything, go down to in every single departure level. And I come from a bus operation in Hong Kong, which is extremely challenging in the sense that this was in Hong Kong, there is zero subsidy for public transport. Everything has to make money, commercial. It has to be commercial operation. So you can imagine with that kind of environment, we have to be very, very efficiency oriented. Every last drop of juice that we can take out from the rocks, we take out, we squeeze the rocks basically. So, but that is the excitement that we have in operations of the public transport here. And I would present scheduling in context of efficiency and performance really. So going through this some of these repetitions you will see. So I think what happens in a bus business is that you got planning aspects, then you do a preparatory aspects, then you go to operations, and then you start to shut down, the operations and bring it for maintenance services. So that's a normal cycle of business. And then, of course, you have your reporting parameters, which are mostly contractual requirements or regulatory requirements. And then you have the revenue side. So this big element on left-hand side is your cost. This is what we need to manage. And like in any business in the world, you have to reduce the cost as much as possible, and you have to increase the sales as much as possible. And how does scheduling, staff scheduling, and crew and the bus scheduling can help both the sides? That is the key aspect that one must address. And I think that is the part I would like to talk about a little bit more. So when we do schedules, they are planned schedules because we are dealing with a lot of resources. Now, if just imagine in your head, if you were owner of a bus and you go to a new city and you start your buses on the first route that is readed there, and you got just one bus to operate, what do? You assign a driver and give him the key and say, run this bus route, go up and down, and that's it. It's a shuttle bus. And that becomes what we call is a simple one man, one bus operation. Okay, one man, one bus, one route, basically. Okay, and this is the most traditional form of operation all around the world, even today. Now, let me add to more complexity. Now you are trying to add 24-hour service on this one bus, right? It becomes immediately you need more than one driver because one driver cannot work all day. So you are going for 2 or 3 drivers, depending on how many shifts you would like to manage. So if you do 2, it's a 12-hour shift. If you do 3, it's an 8-hour shift. And then if you add second bus to the game, then we are talking about, managing your crew over 2 buses. Add third one, fourth one, it becomes even more complex. Then you start adding the routes onto it from 1 route to 10 routes, and suddenly your complexity is manifold. So if you present it in a layer, and from a mathematical point of view, you have a layer of routes, you have a layer of your bus and crew, in what we call the resources. And then the third layer you have is your infrastructure. You have depots, you have bus stops, terminals. So things can start from different places. They can go to different places. I mean, in public transport, we have this huge geographical issue. If I end a service, let's say in one part of the city, I cannot just appear in another part of the city. I need to have certain level of that planning as well. If you want a driver who makes only 1 trip a day, takes you from your house to the office, and then in the evening comes back from your office to your home. Now, this driver, what he's supposed to do during all this time, right? One easiest way is, can he not do something else? And for doing something else, you need to make sure you solve this geographical puzzle. And this really is what makes it very complex optimization exercise, the whole scheduling work. Because so I operated a bus service, which was 4,000 buses, carrying about 3.2 million people. I had 4 major depots, roughly about 12 parking depots, 2,000 bus stops and terminals, and roughly about 12,000 drivers. Now add this up, and then you'll start to see, can you do it in Excel? And the answer you will get very immediately. It just creates too many dimensions to solve in an Excel spreadsheet. So if I do one man, one bus, one route, yes, I can do it in Excel. But the moment I want to optimize this along these layers, becomes almost an impossible exercise for an Excel. And of course, we start to add another lot of new techniques that I'll talk about later, in a minute. So, and how we can make bus services more efficient using scheduling. Okay, so bus ops planning, I think Mr. Prashant has given a great overview, so I don't need to go into these things. I'll skip this bit. This is again this whole process, how different things interact within a whole schedule generation or planning process of the operation. So I'll skip this also. You'll get the slides anyway. And this is the key part. So these are the 3 divisions that we do. One is, questions to ask is what to deliver. And this is your planning, your route planning, service planning, resource planning, and then how to deliver. So once you know what to deliver, passenger demand, how many buses to run on a certain route, you have figured out basic parameters of capacity and demand, supply, and then you come down to the next level where you start to planning your resources and operations. This is the cost element. This is the big cost element. Roughly, if you look at Indian STUs, the cost of the manpower, the driver and the conductor, they can go up to 60%. Prashant, correct me if I'm wrong, about 60, 70% of the total bus operation. Now, this is a big number. And if you think that, if you want to optimize the cost, obvious answer is this is an area I would like to address. If I can optimize this part of the cost, it can derive the biggest benefit. Of course, there are a lot of other places to optimize as well, but this is a big chunk. The big prize is right here. And of course, delivery of services is then directly linked to customer satisfaction. So how reliable service you do. So if I make journey times too tight, for example, let's say average. So if I take an average of 20 kilometers an hour, and for any sections, the speed goes up to 22 or 23 even, very small change, I would miss my next journey because the bus would not reach the end at time and it cannot complete the next journey. So that's why I said it's a curse of the average. If you want to achieve 90% reliability, simple rule is you have to look at 90 percentile of the journey time. You cannot look at an average journey time. It's a misnomer. There is no way by using an average journey time you can achieve a 90% reliability. So that means 90% of the journeys must complete before the scheduled time. That's when you can achieve a 90% reliability. So it is directly linked to a customer experience on the road. And that's why scheduling is such an art. And when I managed a team of schedulers in Hong Kong, and basically we used to run this prize system for schedulers that every time they can save a bus or they can save a duty on a bus schedule, we would award them every month. So we used to run it like a competition every month where the schedulers, the best schedulers would get an award because it requires a very careful fine tuning. So for example, mathematically, if a bus arrives 1 minute late or 1 minute later from a journey time calculation perspective, the system, the mathematical system would not allow that bus to go into the next duty, which can feed in 1 minute early. But if you apply a little bit of logic, you can actually solve that problem very easily and you can save a bus. So there's a lot of optimization, scope for optimization in operation of those bus services. Okay, so bus and staff scheduling, that's why it takes a lot of focus. And I'll just relate a story from my own experience. When I joined the bus company in 2013 in Hong Kong, the bus company was a loss-making service. And I'll show you the actual numbers, which are publicly available data. And the idea was, and I was responsible for turning around the business. And the first thing when we started doing the scheduling optimization with 4,000 buses, we immediately, after an optimization exercise, we saved 120 buses, which means we could deliver the same schedule with 120 buses less. Now, considering that each bus cost you about $500,000 US, 120 buses immediately translate into $60 million US. Now, that's a big number, right? $60 million US, I don't know. Please convert it into rupees. I cannot run it in my brain. And these are double-deck buses, huge. And not only that, it also has a direct bearing on the mileage that you run, dead mileages, because the buses are then running irresponsibly everywhere. And every extra mile you put on the road also creates a safety hazard. It has a chance to create an accident because number of accidents in most of the places is directly linked to the number of mileage or kilometers that you drive. So every extra 100,000 kilometers that you run, you are creating a much more risk to the whole operation. So obviously one side is cost, but there are a lot of other benefits that accrue if you do an efficient scheduling. And that's why there is so much emphasis on scheduling exercises. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity, which Mr. Surya Kiranji mentioned, is that if you can solve this problem in India, the benefits are so big that he is even willing to take it out and put it to all the STUs. And indeed, that is really a great opportunity for you to look at. Okay. So as I said, most of these are about optimization. So this is really, from a mathematical perspective, this is an optimization problem, nothing else. And of course, there are a lot of equations, a lot of papers written on this topic. I don't think in 20 minutes I can go into that much of detail, but people who have done an OR or operational research, you would understand how to solve this complicated problem. Okay, so I'll skip to some of the challenges side. So of course, the easy part for bus operation is that buses are very flexible. You can deploy them anywhere you like. So today the problem is in one part of the city. You increase the resources here. Tomorrow you can move the same bus to another part of the city. And of course, each bus carries only about 60, 70 people in a single deck bus operation. And so if there is a disruption, there's a breakdown, the problem to handle is a smaller problem compared to, let's say, a train system. A train can carry 2,000, 3,000 people. So you don't have as big a problem to handle. So it's much easier to handle disruptions when it comes to the buses. And I'm saying that because I used to operate trains as well in Hong Kong. So I did trains for 15 years, and then I did buses for 5 years in Hong Kong. But the difficult part of bus operation now is that it is very easily influenced by a lot of externalities. There are weather issues, traffic issues, and every day of the operation is different. You have exam season, the bus operation pattern changes. You have wedding season, the bus operation pattern is different. It can be affected by so many of these external factors that, it's very hard to manage or create schedules. So, I mean, you are all approaching Holi, for example. And if you do and I'm sure the bus companies can tell you that they might have a Holi schedule, right? Because the travel patterns for, as a festival, would be completely different from what it would happen on a normal day or a normal weekend. So over a period, all this data goes back into the system. And I think Mr. Prashant was talking about that, how data feeds back into your planning loop, or must feed into your planning loop. So coming back to this, that, there is much more interaction with passengers. The passengers vary a lot, and that's why the experiences vary a lot. But one of the key thing is that if you create effective schedules and you run an effective operation, you can create a lot more passenger satisfaction. And because there is a lot more visibility of buses, it's right there, and a lot of people use them. But it is an extremely labor intensive work. A lot of people are involved, and there is a lot of human factor. So your drivers are one part of the problem, or one part of the solution, depending on how you look at it. Your conductors could be part of it. Now, again, one of the interesting stories here was, people often say that you give more time to the driver, it will increase your cost, right? So that's a straight line thinking. We always say that you build in more flexibility into your schedule, and it will, so which means the drivers have more time to recover. It will increase the cost because you'll need more drivers. The answer is yes, mathematically. But I'll tell you from my experience, we gave more room to the drivers and I was talking about this average versus 90%. So I moved, when I was doing the schedule, running this whole operations, we moved the bar from scheduling from 50%, which is the average, to 90 percentile. So 90 percentile reliability. So I was, of course, challenged that it will increase the cost of operation. But what we did was, when we created this, not only that we improved service reliability, but we also realized that the drivers, because they now don't have the anxiety and the pressure to meet those schedules, and because, I think in most places, driver pays are linked to these things, or driver performance evaluation are linked to how much on-time performance that they deliver, the anxiety level comes down, and that improves your safety. And what we found, that the drivers are now driving much better, and they are actually ending up achieving much shorter journey times than even before. So our law of, it's a link to the whole behavioral pattern, what drivers can deliver, how you schedule your services. You schedule them too tight, and this is again another optimization issue. We optimize them too tight. It creates a constraint for the drivers. We optimize them for too loose. It obviously gives a lot of, increase wastage in the system. And there is a point in between where you reach an optimal point where you balance between your cost of operation, your efficiency, performance, as well as customer experience. And I think this is a point that you need to find when you are doing effective scheduling. And it's an iterative process. It's not a fix in the wall. Nobody in the world can tell you this is the line and you can do it. Every city is different. Every bus operation could be different. But this is a challenge for schedulers, that you have to be go into that iterative process to fine tune and calibrate your schedules. And yeah, the bottom line is that every day is a different day for bus operation, and you have to be prepared, and your schedules need to be adaptive enough to effectively incorporate those differences that happen on a daily basis. Okay. In a simple way, I go into the details. It's a 4-step process. We do timetables. Timetables are very simple. A bus can run every 15 minutes, bus can run every 10 minutes, bus can run and a number of techniques we apply there. Some people, this is again personal experience. We do always what we call memory headways. And what is a memory headway is that you don't run a service which doesn't follow a clock pattern, which means you never run a 13-minute service. Because if your 13-minute service, let's say, started at 5 a.m. in the morning, and if I ask you that after 10 a.m., what will be the arrival time for this bus, it requires a lot of mathematical jiggery in your mind. You won't be able to calculate it. But if I told you that the bus runs every 15 minutes, you would be able to immediately say this. So even, the old people who may not be as savvy mathematically, they can immediately tell that my bus comes every 15 minutes. And 15 minutes they would remember exactly, because it's same number on the clock every hour. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. These are easy to remember. These are what we call memory headways. And if you're running, odd numbers like 17-minute headway, people can't remember. And that is another technique that we bring in from route planning into the scheduling. So that's a part of your timetabling work. Then based on the timetable, we develop a vehicle schedule. Now, this is what the bus resources will do. And then we have crew schedules, which are how the crews are allocated. Now, still, we don't put the name here. And then rosters are where the names are, where we know which driver is on holiday, which driver is going where, which driver is sick, which driver can work in the morning, which driver can work in the evening. There was a question that, do we adapt the rosters for age groups? Yes. Normally I would adapt my schedule for individual drivers. The driver would call us and say, next month, my daughter is going through a exam, or she's going to the college admission. So I have to daytime, I want to be free. And I would adapt the schedule for that driver. It's very easy. Once you have these optimization softwares, you can actually customize a solution to the satisfaction of the driver. And good driver, happy drivers also mean happy service. So it is very important that we make it a very adaptive framework that can be incorporated or customized for individual drivers, individual buses. Sometimes your maintenance guys can say, this particular bus, I want to be released at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So because I need to do something which requires so much work, and that can also be done. So we talked planned versus real-time operation, I think was addressed earlier, so I'll skip this part. Again, impact of accidents, and this is the theory of spares, where we have to plan for spare resources to address some of these things. And we basically measure what kind of impact it will have, and different strategies you need to work out. This is not quite a scheduling solution in advance, but what Mr. Prashant was mentioning, the dynamic scheduling. So we sometimes plan for resources, or sometimes resort to dynamic scheduling to address some of these issues. Now, obviously, we can go into more details if anybody asks, want to get into more. What I want to present is what can be delivered by good scheduling, and some examples from Hong Kong. So this is what I was doing, my personal work. So when we were doing all these optimization with schedules, so we reduced the vehicle kilometers, because we were doing things like interlining. What is interlining? Is a bus can do a long distance trip in the morning, let's say bring you from suburban part of the city to the downtown central business district, and then it becomes a local route. And then in the evening, it can stop being a local route, and it can again become a suburban route and take you back home. So the bus is utilized all day. Now, of course, more you utilize the buses, less that mileage. and better yield, better, you basically generate more return from the same fleet. So you reduce a lot of unwanted mileage by doing that. And if you do that, you also reduce emissions. You have, I mean, all the benefits, standard benefits. So in over this period of 3 years, when we were doing a lot of this optimization of schedules, we could reduce the bus vehicle kilometer while carrying more passengers. So we reduced the vehicle by 7%, increased the number of passengers by 3%. Now that is related to the customer satisfaction that you deliver, the reliability factor. So overall efficiency is 11%. I was running to the tune of 500,000 kilometers per day, in my bus system. And you can imagine, if I can improve the efficiency by 11%, it's a number immediately translatable to the bottom line. And that's the size of the price. It's not in thousands, it's not in lakhs, it's in billions, let me tell you. And numbers are huge. If you're running a big city, big bus operation, cities like Chennai, Bangalore, which have 3,000-4,000 buses, the size of the price is huge. I always tell this to Indian STUs, give me a bus operation and I would run it, and I will pay you for that. Right now you are incurring losses and I'll pay you for running the bus services. It's just that efficiency is lying there. Nobody is capturing those. So you can see that, all this period when I was actually working in the bus fleet, we didn't change. We didn't reduce the number of buses. The total fleet remained pretty much the same. Bus KM came down. We reduced the, useless, what we call dead mileage or useless mileage, which is non-productive mileage from the system. We consistently reduced the mileage that was done by the buses. And this is what we call proof of the pudding is in eating. You can see how the ridership changed, over this period. So 2012 is when I joined. And after that, we saw a consistent growth because of running very effective schedules, reliable services. We improved our reliability from 76%, which is what we were delivering when we were using the averages. And when we moved to 90% reliability in our schedules, we straight away saw the numbers go up from a customer side. And this is a representation of your customer satisfaction. So passenger ridership went up. It's a significant change. And this is what we call the books, the profitability. So 2012 and 13, the company that I was working for is the largest public transport or private bus operator in Hong Kong. They were still losing money. And we were losing from that point to 2016, just over in 3 years. If you see the change in profit, that's $1 billion Hong Kong dollar. I think in Indian rupees, that would translate to, again, I don't know, 100 crores, something like that. So it's 100 crore money, rupees, just lying in your bucket, which if you run an inefficient operation, you can't get it. But if you run an efficient operation, you can derive from this. Now, as a startup, you can imagine the value of 100 crores. It can fund any investment. It can fund any enhancement. So this is really the challenge that is on the table for this Transport for All. I think that keep this in mind, that the numbers are very big. What you do can be very impactful, not just for India, but if you provide a good solutions, people like me who are operating in the international market, we are also looking at it, and we'll be very happy to, take you anywhere you would like to go. So with that in mind, I think you look at solutions and develop solutions there. So I would like to just conclude that, this whole scheduling is about, this integrated optimization, integrated planning, optimization of the services. And they need to be very effective in terms of computing. And of course, these days we have great computing power, and we can generate schedules literally in seconds. I have been also using a couple of new services, which are scheduling platform as a service. And there's a company called Optibus. I think they are also active in India. They provide the first platform as a service. So you don't buy the software anymore, and you are running it on the cloud. So you can just upload your schedule requirements on the cloud, and you can optimize on the cloud because the computing is much faster. So when I used to run my schedules, a few years ago in 2013-14, it used to take me 1.5 hours to generate a schedule, optimization schedule. So it was a long optimization requirement, time. Today, if I do a platform, I can generate the same thing in less than 30 seconds. So it's a big difference. I can do a lot of what if analysis. I can do scenario planning. I can do a lot of things. So all that is available literally at tip of your click. You can just click anything and it works. And when you run a good service, and this is just to conclude quickly, is you develop love for the buses. The city develops love for the buses. And I'll give you some example what we do in Hong Kong. Here, the buses are something that we keep very close to our heart. I collect bus as a toy. I have a whole collection of bus models, and a lot of people like me in this town. And you can see this is a hot dog bus. This is the worst bus that I had run in my life. This was a non-air conditioned double-deck bus, used to get very hot. Breakdown rates were very high. But when we were retiring the last hot dog bus, we threw a party, farewell party for the bus, and thousands of people turned up. And we celebrated this bus, which was the last non-air conditioned bus of Hong Kong, which was being retired from the service. These things can only happen if the city loves their buses, and that's the kind of, I think, activity that you can generate if you run effective schedule, if you run a reliable service. We also augmented our driving workforce, and we allowed a lot of hobbyists to come in there and drive buses. This guy who worked for me, and I recruited him, he came from KPMG. He was a financial analyst in KPMG, wanted to become a bus driver. I brought him in, and guess what? He was a fantastic PR for us. And after that, we got one guy from Deloitte. I got one guy from RBS Bank. So I had bankers, driving buses. And to me, that was the greatest story, from my career. And just to maybe just add a trivia, I'm a qualified bus driver myself, and I used to drive buses. And this was, again, the idea was not that, idea was that to connect with the bus drivers, let them understand what we are trying to do from a scheduling perspective, because most of the time, the drivers and the unions, they think that you are trying to do this optimization to cut their costs, to take their jobs away. And I think what we wanted to illustrate that is not the intent. I actually gave a guarantee to everyone that we'll not fire a single person. And I think this, but if you do it properly, you can take employees with you. You can take this workforce with you, and they can be part of the solution rather than become a part of the problem. This is another, example of that, how we retire services. And as you can see, thousands of people come in, they come with route banners, they come with all of these things, cameras clicking, press is there. And it's a routine thing that we do in Hong Kong, where we try to say farewell to our bus models. So something just to leave you with a little bit of inspiration there, that, if you run a good bus service in cities, people live by it, people swear by it, and it becomes part of the collective memory of the city. And that's exactly what we will try to do. And as a part of your Transport for All challenge, I would challenge you that you should actually achieve something like this in the cities that you work with. With that, thank you very much. I'll be happy to take questions later on. I'll hang around. So if there's anything, I'll let you know.
Thank you very, very much, Alok. It was so inspiring and exciting. I'm sure everybody felt the excitement in your tone and the presentation as well. And I see there were no questions in the whole half an hour. And I myself could not stop you in between, though we exceeded. But, the takeaways are very clear, right? The problem is challenging, but nevertheless, the price is so huge. The opportunity that there is just unimaginable. People are not able to see this. Even forget about international. Just in India, we are talking about 1.5 lakh buses that are managed just by the STUs. If you go to the private operators, then we are talking about 10 lakh buses that are running. Every single day, we are talking about lakhs of crores in savings in every year. So with that, since we have already short of time, let me quickly get to Sayam Gandhi. He is the man right in the field, operating buses every day, 1,000 buses. That's what I hear. So Sayam, tell me what your challenges are. So here I'm actually looking for you to take the startups down into the problem, what you have, what you don't have, that kind of stuff. So looking forward.
Yeah, so Alok ji has given a very exciting presentation. He truly comes off as a bus operator because the kind of passion that he's shown, right? I am also excited listening to all of this. But anyways, coming back to the company and what we're doing.
I'll interrupt you there. Someday, maybe when we retire your buses, Alok, that reminds me of how we, sent off the Concords from Europe to America when we shut down. So I really wish that we are at that stage in India at some point in time. The Indian cities, the STUs will get there. So again, sorry, Sayam, to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. So basically, Chartered Speed is a very young company. We started out in 2010, and in the last 12 years, we've grown to operating in 10 states, about 1,000 buses. We predominantly work with STUs. So we have contracts under public-private partnership, and most of those contracts are gross cost contracts. So from a service provider's perspective, there are certain challenges under a gross cost contract. And then there are certain services which we run directly ourselves, where we charge customers directly. Those are under net cost contracts. So those challenges are different. So I will just divide it into these two buckets. If I start with the gross cost contracts, then the STU essentially wants to make sure that for the contract that they have given to a service provider, they are ensuring whatever schedule has been given, whether that is adhered to correctly, whether all the stops are taken care of correctly, whether the drivers are behaving politely, and whether the operation has been completed during the day. So there are two kinds of kilometers. There's a revenue generating kilometer and there's a dead run kilometer. So we as a service provider, even though it's not in our interest to reduce the kilometer running, essentially if we try to help the STU in reducing the dead run, then in the longer term it benefits our relationship with the STU and also helps with the financial status of the STU. So for us, the first challenge that comes in a gross cost contract, which needs to be solved with technology, is comparing the kilometers on the route as a service versus what the bus operator claims the kilometer is based upon his odometer reading or based on his GPS kilometer. So the first unit economics that needs to be solved is tracking each and every kilometer that the bus has done, whether that was revenue generating, whether that was the bus was sent back for maintenance, or whether that was a dead run from the depot to the starting point of the route. So that is a solution that none of the STUs have looked at right now. Right now they have ITMS systems which take in data from GPS, and then they have to manually compare the kilometers of an operator from maybe his odometer readings or maybe his fueling readings. So that is one thing that needs to be taken care of. Second is, in a gross cost contract for us as an operator, the fleet needs to be always up. So it essentially is always a firefighting job, right? Because if you've been given a service of 100 buses, you can only have so many spare buses. You can have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 spare buses. So you are always continuously calculating whether to invest in a expensive part in a case of an emergency, because that will ensure that your bus will run tomorrow. So that is a calculation that is taken, the decision is taken on the spot every day. So every day at night, the mechanics, when the buses come, they have to decide whether a part that is necessary for the bus to operate tomorrow. If it's not available, then where can they find it? That's the requirement of the supply chain, of the procurement guys. And then to be able to find that part, also decide whether it is worth investing extra to be able to generate revenue tomorrow. So that's the second point. The third is to also track accurate emission values, because now this is becoming more and more important of the operations that you're doing, right? So there's I think Mr. Kakade has also touched upon this point that once we can start tracking the different kinds of kilometers, then we can try to reduce those over time, and the same will help in the long term association with the STU. Then coming to where we operate, so these are net cost contracts. So there the first step of the process is creation of the route. Usually certain routes are defined within the city, so you have to ply on those routes. However, you can play around on the frequency, on the timings, because that will ensure that you have a profit generating business model. So I think both Mr. Kakade and Alokji have already highlighted how to work around a route creation and a schedule creation, so I will not touch much upon that. But I will really touch upon what is most important as a bus operator is real-time feedback. So one is whatever you have implemented, whether that is happening on ground exactly. So that is the first real-time feedback loop that needs to be created in each and every IPMS system. So you need to have real-time capabilities to be able to check from the GPS that the schedule is being adhered to, or whether the number of passengers traveling from A to B is higher than traveling from A to C. So that is where you can create certain efficiency by maybe curtailing the route, and the bus can operate between A to B itself. And the last is the point about vehicle health monitoring. So in our buses there are now a lot of sensors which are continuously giving feedback to the engine control unit. We take them all on the cloud, so we have a third-party software that is giving us real-time data of what the different sensors in the bus are saying. I will talk about a particular incident which has saved us a lot of money, but these are ideas to work upon so that they can work in the future. So we run these ASRTU contracted Volvo buses across Gujarat, and there's a particular part outside the engine which is called the engine pulley. And when we started operating these buses, brand new batch of buses, we started seeing that the engine pulley was falling off while the bus was running, and eventually that would lead to an engine breakdown. Now a Volvo engine can cost up to 40 lakh rupees. The pulley itself is a 5,000 rupee part. So because we had deployed these vehicle health monitoring devices, right, after the first two incidents, the third time the device could actually capture the spike in engine temperature after the pulley had fallen off and alerted us that something wrong is going to happen. And we would call the driver, stop the bus. The driver would go to the rear, because the bus is a rear engine bus, and check, and actually the engine pulley had fallen off. So now if the bus had run another 15 kilometers, the entire engine would have seized, causing us maybe 40-50 lakhs of damage per bus. And these kinds of interventions are required in real time, because a bus operation is not a manufacturing kind of a industry where you set up something and you continuously keep trying to create production. Because your assets are on the ground, things may be going wrong anywhere. So you need to be always relying on real-time data, because whatever you base your decisions on, if they are outdated data, then it will lead to problems such as these. Again, the numbers are huge, as Alokji said. So we started tracking just idling time in our buses. So basically, all the cities that we operate in, Ahmedabad, Surat, Indore, are quite hot during the summers. So whenever the drivers would have a break time, they would keep the engines on so that the air conditioning is on in the bus. And once we started tracking this, we started tracking in 2019. we found out that we were burning about 1,000 liters of fuel every day, just because the buses were idling. And once we started tracking this, we started calling up the drivers every 5 or 10 minutes that the engine was on, and the bus was standing at a particular location. And we started saving 800 liters of fuel out of that 1,000. So that 800 liters is about 2 or 3 crores annually. So just a simple call center that would just call up the drivers that, hey, I know it's hot, but we are burning precious fuel on the ground for no good reason. So that should be the main focus of any sort of technology product that is created for the bus industry. It should always be looking at the real-time data and be able to suggest the bus operator on what decisions to make out of.
So, Sayam, let me ask you this. While you're talking about the real-time data, how do you manage your stores, and how do you optimize your spare parts? How do you manage schedule your buses for maintenance? How does that come about? Is that automated or is that more periodic?
Yeah, so there are two kinds of maintenance. One is the periodic maintenance, which is a recommendation given by the OEM. So a Tata bus would have a different periodic maintenance. A Volvo bus would have different periodic maintenance. That is all managed on an in-house software. So we had to create a supply chain software. We had to create the maintenance software, because right now in the industry, especially in India, the softwares are all working in silos. There's a software given by the GPS provider, and there's a software given by the fuel management company. There's a software provided by maybe a tire management company. And because all of this is in silos, we have to create a top layer to be able to get all of this data. So we are now, plugging all of this into our layer. So we manage buses so every bus is both a revenue center and a cost center. So whenever we are creating any sort of technology, the bus is the primary unit. A bus will then be part of a depot. The depot will be part of a city, and the city will be part of a region. So if you start at the bus level, then at the bus level, you have, it will require parts as input, and it will bring out revenue as output. And the revenue needs to be tracked in kilometers. Even the costs need to be tracked in kilometers. So all parts are allotted to buses. All part requisitions are also done for buses, right? So my particular X bus requires this part, is a requisition that comes from the remote store to the central purchasing store, and then the central purchasing store will purchase a part and then send it to the remote store. What this ensures is, if we don't get a failed part back, we will never be able to check what had gone wrong, right? So we ensure that the part that is being ordered is for a particular bus, so that we can check the failed part and then do some sort of a corrective action. For example, we have so many moving parts, right, in a bus. So many things that can go wrong. For about 4 to 5 years, a particular AC compressor oil was coming for a standard that should be applicable for cars. So that oil was coming and it was getting put into our AC compressors. Now it took 4 years to realize this problem, because our ACs were failing. But it's you start at the coil level, then you look at the blower motors failing, then you look at the clutch assemblies failing, and then you realize, oh my God, you've been using the wrong compressor oil, right? So that's the kind of problems that may come up, because there are so many moving parts, there are so many different models. This oil only got introduced into the system because we have tempo travelers, right? So tempo travelers, that oil is correct. Now that was coming at a lower price, so the store guy decided, oh, let's procure this for all of our buses, and it eventually ended up hurting us. So essentially, whenever we are creating any sort of a technological solution for the public transport industry, it should all be done at a bus level. So if you start doing at a bus level, then you will be able to solve certain problems for the bus operators.
So Alok, let me, before Alok goes in, let me ask this. So how do you see software? A whole lot of what you're saying is coming from the experience, right? How do you see the software itself learning or changing the way you do things? Like, do you see that opportunity, or do you think that it is?
No, there's a huge opportunity. So once we implemented the vehicle health monitoring system, we also asked the company to work with us on the electric buses. Those are a specific problem to solve. So what happens on the electric buses is once you've bought the bus, you have limited range, but you have unlimited roads in the city. You have different kinds of routes, but you need to still operate the same type of bus on all these routes. So what is missing the most is actually being able to predict how much the bus will run today, because at some places the traffic is higher, some places the traffic is lower. Sometimes the temperature of the city is higher, and sometimes the temperature is lower. So we worked with this agency to be able to predict in real time. It now gives us what the distance to empty every day, and basis of that we can call the bus back for charging during the day. So there is an opportunity charging that needs to be done for each bus. There are 3 points within the city where the buses can be charged. So you need to make sure that the bus is on trip and closest to one of these charging points, and also that the charging point needs to be empty when the bus is going there. Another bus, if it's charging over there, then you are really losing out on peak revenue. So it becomes a very complex problem to solve from a scheduling perspective. And that's where we had this company called Optibus. So we brought them to India to solve this problem for us, and we've been working with them for about a year, trying to solve this exact problem that we have different charging points, we have limited batteries, and we have so much routes to operate.
Yeah.
So great. Let me go to Alok for the next question.
So I don't have a question. I probably just, if you don't mind, Sanyam, I would like to just supplement a little bit. Is that what we normally take from the maintenance point of view, this whole asset management approach. So we look at this, because normally, when I was doing the bus operation, roughly, only the spares inventory, they would be more than, close to 15 to 20% of my total asset value on my balance sheet. So it's a big dead money, what we call, this is not sweating, this is not being utilized, they are not generating revenue, this is just stock lying in my depot. So obviously minimizing this inventory is very important. And when we took this asset, looking at the data, the failures, how many kilometers it can do, when it was going to fail, etc., what we could do is we could intersect this inventory with the whole risk management aspect, risk assessment aspect. So what is the downtime of the bus if we don't have the spare? And based on that, we had this whole critical spares, non-critical spares. And at the same time, we could also intersect this with the lead time for the procurement. So some spares can be procured just shop on the corner. Some spares you need to order it from Germany or God knows where, and it may take 3 months to arrive. And based on that, you can actually design a system where that you can expect only this much or accept only this much downtime, and to accept this much downtime, what kind of spares you need to keep in your inventory. So you can optimize the inventory so that 20% of the balance, that asset value that is lying in the balance sheet, if you can bring it down by even 5%, that's a lot of saving into the system. Other thing which you can manage very well is this obsolescence management. So because if you're changing buses with the new models, some of the spares in your inventory, that just becomes useless. You can't use them anymore. So we know the bus retirement schedules, and we try to also minimize the obsolescence of these spares in that. And again, that saves a lot of money. So there is a lot of those values that you can derive from a proper maintenance scheduling aspect.
I can give you a particular number. So we're only 12 years old, and we already have 3.5 crores of dead stock. This is stock purchased for buses that came out of operation. And you can't do anything with it because the model is obsolete. So software that will help us, plan for certain situations like this, really help. But then, the operations in India are so, decided over real time. We are working with the STUs, and the STU is deciding at the end of life whether to extend or not, right? Without that decision, you are stuck trying to operate the bus till the last day, and then they tell you, okay, go ahead, you operate for another 6 months. And then you have to do this all over.
But Sayam, these are the kind of conversations that are required with the government, right? So I can tell you this example in Indore, right? When we were doing the BRT, I'm not sure how much you are aware. So the collector would give instruction, I want this 100 meters built. And then the next day he would say, I want this place, here we got permission, so we build. And the guy who was doing the contractor was really struggling. Then one day I had to go and ask him, why are you struggling? You have the capacity to do 100 meters every day, then just keep going with that. Then he came and said the problem is not with 100 meters. The problem is that you give me 100 meters in the north segment one day, and the second day you give me somewhere in the south. I can't switch all this equipment there and come back. So then, when we speak of these problems, I think that's when we can find a solution. Then I had to go back to the collector and say, hey, we need to get this in the sequence. So I think if you start talking this to the STUs, and once we are able to show what is the difference, in the service quality that we can deliver, I think these problems can be solved. And I think this is exactly where the software's solutions can also help, is to give that picture to all the stakeholders, saying that a decision making done today, it has to prompt decision making. Let us say that, if you don't do decision making today, then this is the amount of disruption that you're going to cause. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, if before the end of life, right, if I know that the STU is going to extend the contract by a year or year and a half, then a year before the contract is about to end, I will go and replace some of the cooling coils. The AC cooling coil costs about 60,000, but if I don't replace it, I will have to keep replacing my clutch assemblies, which also cost another 25,000. Now, if they tell me it's going to be for 2 years, I'll be able to do it, and they will tell me if they can see directly from the data what is the increase in maintenance costs over time, right? So there are certain things that you need to overhaul to be able to reduce those costs, and I think it's a good problem to solve for all the stakeholders.
Amazing insights. This is what really thrills me about conversations with the operators directly. So fantastic experience, Sayam and Alok, for sharing all these things. I will open this for questions for everybody. I see one question right now from Rajesh Ramani. Rajesh, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you everyone for the amazing session and insightful, I would say. And this was clearly opened up cleared a lot of doubts rather. So one question I would like to ask the forum, specifically Alok sir and Prashant sir. See, basically from a startup perspective, I think we are being brought in to have to bring in innovation in some form or the other and out of the box thinking, which probably today stalwarts like might have not done over the years. So one basic thing which I observed in both the presentations, when Alok sir was talking, he was talking about a driver, whereas when Prashant sir was talking, he was talking about a crew. Crew essentially means one or more people operating the bus, and driver would mean one person operating the bus. So is there a possibility when we as startups come out with a solution that we can go ahead and help STUs reduce the manpower? Because there are also government norms, right? Now with technology, of course, we can reduce the manpower. We can probably have one person instead of two, but that will only happen if we have some guidance from the STOs, whether that is permissible, that can we use technology to do that, like you can have scanning of the tickets and stuff like that to get one of the operators down, and that will reduce the cost significantly. But these are all government norms, whether we can do it or not in the first place. So that was my first question.
So if I can take a quick answer on this one. First of all, there are no government norms here. Okay. And having worked with Indian STUs, it's a STU to STU, this differs. So we are currently also doing a project in Chennai with World Bank assistance, and we faced a similar issue there, and you're absolutely right, Rajesh, on the point that this is really an area where you can do a lot of savings, a lot of wastage can be saved. So with the technology. So and yes, we when we were working there, we tried to convey the same message, and eventually we were able to demonstrate and convince them to go for a partial reduction. So obviously you don't have to cut off, it's all about change management. And I completely agree it can be done, and that it's if you process the change management in a proper way, then you can manage that process very easily. So I think you need to provide a solution, show it to them, build that comfort, and then slowly transition into more efficient space.
Yeah, so that's a great answer. But if they are open, then of course we will want to work on that aspect. And there, I have one more question. I think I did not get a very convincing answer. So in your chart, Alok sir, you mentioned the revenue as ticket sales. Now, I just wanted to check. So I run a very small operations for buses, for societies rather. We could not generate revenues enough to make profit only by ticket sales. Of course, there are other modes of generating revenue which have helped us generate profits, like advertisement inside the bus, outside the bus, so on and so forth. But do you consider those as revenues, or
yes.
is not?
So Rajesh, we basically put it two buckets. What we call is a fare box revenue and non-fare box revenue. So fare box revenue is what customers are forced to pay. They have to pay to use the service. Non-fare box revenue are what we call as a opportunistic generation of revenue. And I have sold newspapers on the buses. I have sold coffee on the buses. I have tried every possible thing. I carried courier services on the buses, logistics in off-peak. I even experimented with a grocery store and delivered groceries to people. So yes, there's a lot that can be done. Places like Hong Kong, out of the total revenue, roughly about 15 to 20% of the revenue comes from non-fare box, and 80 to 85% of the revenue comes from the fare box. So that's the kind of norm. When I was working for the railways, in railways, we could do 40% of the revenue coming from the non-fare box. So yeah, it's part of this overall economics of the bus operation.
Yeah, so will in India, will that be allowed? Because obviously I run my own transport. 60% comes from non-fare and only 30%, 30 to 40%.
Rajesh, in the interest of time, I would actually park that question because that is not directly related to the problem statements.
Okay, sure.
We have barely eight minutes time with the
Rajesh,
very
you can connect
speakers.
with me. You can connect with me offline, and I can answer that question.
Sure.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we are happy to do that process. But yeah, let me give chance to anybody else who wants to ask any question on this, on both the issues of crew and bus scheduling and the issue of vehicle health monitoring and maintenance scheduling. Or have they scared you enough that there are no questions anymore? Okay, I see Vikas raising his hand. So Vikas, go ahead and is Vikas unmute? Can anybody unmute? Can I do that?
Yeah, now I can, right? That was my problem. So I'm not specifically asking on these, but obviously I went through the 8 themes of the topic, right? And what you start to see is the themes have been designed keeping business processes in mind, which is a very fair thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But from a technology layer, if you start to look at it, right, if you take a step back, what you will end up creating is a massive amount of fragmentation in the technology stack automatically, because there are so much commonalities of technology which would be used across different, let's say, operations. And I think so that's the challenge Sayam is facing massively, right? Where he ended up building a layer on top of it, right? So have you ever thought of the problem differently, right? to say that rather than we trying to build a business process level vertical slices of technology, which will never scale up and will become very expensive, how do I actually build horizontal layers of technology, but overlay the business process on the top? And I think so, as I said, it probably relates back to the challenge which Swayam was also talking about.
Alok, you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, it's like eating apple. You can eat it from the circular way. You can eat it, cut it, but it still remains the apple, right? So it really doesn't change the taste of the apple. So yes, the answer is to you is yes. And normally the size of the problem is very big. So if you're running 2,000 buses, the size of the problem is very big, and normally that's why we cut it in chunks. And the idea is that if you cut the problem in chunks, you have smaller problems to address, and you can do it by different periods of time from a cost perspective. You can also do it more fine-tune the solutions because you have a better perspective of things. So that's the reason why we do it that way. And we try to keep a little bit of overlap between these so that they can be integrated well. One of the key tasks in many of these solutioning aspects is what we call system integration, how things can plug and play. They can come together, work with each other, do data exchanges across systems. And many standards have started to emanate around the world on that one. One is that is adopted in Europe very commonly is IT for PT. So this is a completely new standard that has come around, which is defining what kind of data formats you need to prepare so that machines can talk to each other or the data can talk to each other. And I think those kind of standards, India being, as I said, again, a billion people country, you can develop those kind of standards for India where the systems can talk to each other. And then this whole idea about the horizontal vertical goes away because everything becomes seamless. And as long as they are all machine readable, all the data that is generated is machine readable, they are well-defined formats, then there should not be any problem these days,
And I'd like to add something there. So the horizontal layer is something that's important to me. However, each department has a department head. And for them, to be able to solve their department's problem is primary objective. So, it will solve the problem for management, but essentially for each department, if people are trying to solve a smaller problem, they can go further and further into depth of that product.
Understood.
So, because you might have seen from even the conversations here, though we were talking about two specific problem statements, we actually walked into the whole area as such, in real-time location, real-time tracking, and digitizing the networks and everything like that. So it is very interconnected. Nevertheless, and we are pretty open to having larger solution as well. It is not like you're restricted to supply only the portion that is being asked for. So we are more than happy to see somebody develop more aspects to this. That's one. But the problem statements clearly specify that the plug and play aspect, that each module should work with other modules that are developed or the other modules that the bus agencies have. So there has to be an interoperability and integration perspective is very clear. So that is going to be extremely, extremely important, even if you are developing a small piece of it. But you are very much open and free to develop the large piece.
Okay. Understood. Thank you, Prashant.
Anybody else? We are really close to the 5 p.m. mark. And in Hong Kong, I think it is already 7:30, 8 p.m. 7:30. Yeah. So I should let you go spend time with family there. But any final remarks? Any of the speakers, Mr. Kakade sir, Alok, Sayam, any closing remarks from your side?
Well, I can just say this, that good luck to all of you. And India presents a huge amount of opportunity by its sheer size. When I was once assessing the number of buses, India as a market, you can imagine India, just for the replacement of buses per annum, exceeds 130,000 buses per annum. And no manufacturer in the world can meet that kind of demand. So you can, it's the size of the market is so huge that if you really come up with a good solution, you are a unicorn, if straight away. So
Yeah.
just think about that. It's a dream that a lot of people would love to have. Access to this size of the market is really not an opportunity somebody in Europe or somebody in a smaller country in Southeast Asia would be able to do. So, and that's I think the bigger goal in your mind, that if you can make this work, it's a potential unicorn for the world.
Yeah. And let me add one more thing. So while we have not really decided the quantum of prices for each of the problem statements, both the problem statements that we are talking today rank highest in complexity. Among all the 8, these 2 rank highest in the complexity and has the highest price money for sure. So be assured of that. So it might be insignificant, but the market size is huge. So with that, let me close the call. Thank you very much, all the speakers and the participants, to be here and make it exciting, and look forward to more opportunities to connect, and best of luck.
Good luck
very
to you.
much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you. Dot on time. So good evening. Bye.